to the second session of our lessons based on business communication. Without further delay, let's start with the lesson. So earlier we talked about what is communication, process of communication and elements of communication, right? So we will be starting and continuing the second tutorial. And the first topic that we have here is principles of communication, right? So, what are principles of communication? First off, we have clarity and conciseness, right? Clarity means whatever you are saying should have the perfect mannerisms which it follows, and your message should be easy to understand, easily communicated, and not in a haphazard manner or a complex language that cannot be understood by the audience, right? And for concise information means it needs to be brief. It needs not be longer than what is required. Okay. So it should also avoid ambiguity so that message is perfectly understood by the receiver. Now, second component we have the audience and context. Okay, so what does it say here? It says that uh, communicator should always consider the intended audience. Intended audience, like if I am telling you and I am your tutor, then you all are my intended audience, and I should always consider whether the information or the data that I am wanting to communicate to you is perfectly understood by you or not. And the context or the scenario that we have is perfect or not for the transmission to be successful. The tone, the style, or the mannerisms. I have been saying this to you from the very first session that the mannerism, the emotions, these all are very much important for us to communicate perfectly, right? Understanding is of foremost priority in any communication. Okay. Now the third principle we have is feedback. What is the feedback, right? You give feedback, like you give feedback to your tutor. You give feedback for an app you used for some time, and now you are giving feedback how it can improve and how what are the changes that you might need in an app, what are the changes you might need in this lesson. So these all are the feedbacks, and feedback is the very good method for a two-way exchange, and feedback mechanisms are very much important in any business, in any communication, and in almost everything. Okay, moving on, we have process of communication, right? So what is the process of communication? What are the elements that we have, right? How we communicate? The communication is not a simple process. For communication to happen and a good communication to happen, we first of need an idea about the context, right? An idea about what the conversation is going to about, what is the topic, and everyone, and the response that the communication is basically the response that we have for a certain scenario, certain situation, or any opinion that we have on any political issues, social issues, etc. Right? People may have different opinions on political matters. Suppose we one might be speaking against the government, whereas few is speaking for the government, right? They might have certain differences because he is supporting, he is negating his comments, right? But they have the very idea, they have political opinion on certain matters, okay? And they wish to communicate, they wish to convey their messages, their opinions to the government and to each other also, right? Then second, we have encoding, right? You might know about encoding and decoding, and it might seem very fascinating to you, the words encoding and decoding, right? In FBI and in James Bond movies, we see certain gestures, we see certain codes that they are deciphered, and And because first they encode it into a certain with a certain symbols or gestures, and these all are gestures and symbols are pre-communicated, and the person receiving it deciphers it and decodes it to get the message, and for him to get the message carefully, correctly, and for the intended meaning to be understood, and therefore he can obviously work on it, right? So see, what is the definition here? The transmitting the idea into message that can be understood by the receiver, right? He is communicating, but he is not communicating in a simple manner, but he is choosing the appropriate words, symbols, or gestures for the effective transmission, right? Because see, Indians have a certain unique way of doing things. We communicate with our hands, we communicate with our eyes and our head bobble, right? We use certain gestures for the make communication effective and to deeply involve in it. So encoding is not basically used in some uh, fictional movies like James Bond, etc. But in the real world also it is used. Now we have third thing, that is channel selection. How we communicate also depends on the channel, right? The how we are communicating, through what we are communicating, these all needs to be properly chosen for the communication to be good or have a good communication, right? So here we see that the choice of channel depends on factors like message nature, distance between sender and receiver, and the desired level of formality. Right. If the message is of utmost importance, or message is between suppose FBI and the raw that we have, then the message will be encoded that so in a manner that these can be understood by only the specific persons involved. Then we have distance, because see, you can obviously, earlier we had the telephones where has we could communicate within the states of our country, but now we have instant messaging and things like Instagram, WhatsApp, etc. So we can basically communicate all over the world. You can FaceTime everyone or anyone from all around the world, right? And the then we have and the desired level of formality, because see, even now we follow certain hierarchy. You can't message your boss, hey boss, I won't be available today. Hey, let me know. That doesn't work like that, because even now we are very much hell-bent on following the hierarchical system, and we will obviously consider emailing our boss. So email allows us to formally send messages in all to our boss and make them understand that okay, I need a 1 day leave or 2 day leave to attend this, and obviously it's also a sign of showing that I respect you and I respect the hierarchical system or boss a lot. Right? Then the fourth thing we have is decoding. You have perfectly encoded the message and you have sent it through a good channel and everything is done. But the person receiving must also know that whether it is perfectly being decoded or not, right? So, process of interpreting or decoding the message is done by the receiver. Now we have certain word symbols or gestures that were used in during encoding that must be known to the person receiving it. The receiver's interpretation saves the understanding of the message. Suppose he knows certain symbols. Suppose he knows about 23 symbols, right? He wrote the message using 23 symbols, but during the communication, he knew about only 21 symbols. Two symbols he did not know, or he did not had knowledge on. So he won't be able to communicate these two symbols, and these two symbols are going to create a communication gap between the sender and receiver. Right. Next up, we have feedback. Mechanisms obviously makes us understand the what were the communication gap between the sender and the receiver, right? Feedback is the response receiver provides to sender. So see here, the sender decoded, but he was not able to properly decode it. So he will say, okay, I had knowledge on 21 symbols. I did not had knowledge on the two symbols that he used. Okay, I wasn't able to. I could get that your meaning meant this or that, but I don't know whether it was perfect or not. So the receiver will, sender will say, okay, I got that. That's the message. My message might have been a little complicated to you because you did not have the knowledge on the two symbols, right? So feedback will allow the sender to perfectly adjust the communication, right? So you now understand how much important feedback is for both sender as well as receiver, right? Next up, we have barriers to communication. What are the things that stop the communication to be successful, or that does not allow the communication to be successful, right? So first up, we have noise. If there is too much noise or external disturbance, you won't be able to communicate, right? If you see you are having a group study, right? You are all are sitting on a round table discussing all type of mocks and things. What will come in the examination? How do we do that? How we do this? How to solve this? How to solve this and that? So there you have a procession going on, which is playing music, which is playing certain slogans in a very loud noise, and which is almost blasting your ears, so you won't be able to communicate properly. You one person will not get what you are saying or what you are about to say. He will get only a fractions of your saying, fractions of your information. So the information here will be a little too complicated for you guys to have proper understanding of the lesson, right? Now we have physical discomfort, right? Physical discomfort is also very much important because we are sitting in a class, right? Everyone is sitting in a class, and it's it the class had to go on for about 1:30, but still you all guys are sitting, and you and it's us too. That must mean that you all are hungry and so much fatigued because you have been in the class since 8 in the morning, and still you are sitting and listening to the lessons, and you don't know what to do because you are feeling so much hungry and you are not able to fully grasp whatever the teacher is telling. You won't be able to understand the lesson in and anything at all. So physical body is not at its best because you are feeling hunger, you are feeling fatigue, or if someone is ill or someone is negatively impacted, suppose you are already so much frustrated with all your classmates or the bullying that you have been facing, or certain issue that you might have in your internal level, the emotional burden that you have, so you are not able to fully get your lessons, right? So that is also a time of that is also a time where you get physically so much trained that you are not able to fully focus on the lesson. Okay, now we have personal barrier, right? Personal barriers are the internal factors, right? That means the lesson is going on, and you are not feeling fatigued or not ill or not emotionally drained or not hungry. but still you are not able, this person say Ram is not able to focus because he was never interested in maths. Okay, that topic and also that lesson is not of his interest, so he won't be paying attention. So personally, he has done what? He has closed himself that okay, it is not of any interest to me. I won't be able to work, or I don't want to be that much involved in this lesson because it's completely boring to me. Yeah. Now we have cognitive barriers, right? So cognitive barriers are what? You must know that robots now have cognitive intelligence and they are able to have a mind of their own, so they can understand the emotions and all. But humans are human by nature, have feelings, and they are humans because they have feelings in them, right? So, daydreaming, making assumptions, distorted listening can all lead to misunderstanding or misinterpretations of the message. Suppose there has come a person who is saying something, but we already has closed ourselves by saying that, okay, he was the one creating nuisance in the field that day, and we were also, and let's not talk to him. He only wastes time. Although he's saying something that can be beneficial to us or that can have a meaningful impact on our lives or our lessons or our careers, but we are not paying enough attention to him because we think that he all he talks is nonsense. So we already have a assumption of him that all he does is waste time. Now, distorted listening. Suppose you don't want to listen to something, then you will have this, or you will only listen to something you want to listen. Only a part of the communication, a part of the message you will be listening to. Okay, so that is distorted listening, right? So these are mental restrictions and distraction, which comes under cognitive barriers. Okay, now we have other barriers like the speakers I told you earlier, which comes under which in noise I explained to you. Now, the speakers also interrupt our day-to-day life, and these create so much noise pollution, which is only growing day by day. Then poor judgment in choosing appropriate language or timing, lacking empathy for the receiver's perspective, not paying attention to what he's saying, distorted listening, and the not by not choosing a proper language. You want to communicate to the people in the Garo Hills, but you don't know their language, so, and you are speaking in English and they don't know English. So how will you communicate? You won't be able to communicate, right? So you have poor judgment that all of them know English. No, they don't. They still speak their own language, tribal language. Now we have 10 commandments of communication, right? This is also one topic. This is a very uh, good topic, I would say, for business communication because see, if you know these 10 commandments, you are a perfect communicator, right? So first up, we have listen. So listening becomes very important. Only if you listen properly, only if you know what he was saying, then you will be able to fully focus on the communication. See, undivided attention. Undivided attention means full attention to the speaker so that you will be able to formulate your response. You know what to be said after the speaker is done speaking. Now, second, be truthful and direct, right? So if you are honest and have enough clarity on communication, you won't need to fully exaggerate or sugarcoat the language or the thing so that your trust is not evaded and communication doesn't leads to misunderstanding, right? So if you are honest and truthful, you won't need any sugarcoating. Now, third is speak with clarity on purpose. Though after we know that what is to be said, it must also be understood that We are speaking with a clear voice, and of course, our message has a purpose. Our message has a clear understanding on the situation, which is and what is the context, what is the information, all of that, right? And it should have a normal language that is understood by the common people. Language should not be complex, right? If you are going in a UP and you think, okay, these all are the Hindi speakers, and probably if I speak in Sanskrit, then I am going to make a major impact. No, if they are Hindi speakers, you must use the normal Hindi, or most likely the dialect that is spoken there, be it Audhi and all. You must speak in that language to ensure that it is easy to understand by everyone, whether literate, illiterate, educated, or now. Fourth one is we have consider your audience, right? So I told you the dialect. So we will tailor our communication style for the intended audience. If we are going to the urban areas, we won't be using the rural dialect. If we're going to the rural areas, we won't be speaking in the urban dialect. The rural people are mostly into things like farming and all, and they use the very common language like Bhojpuri, Maghi, in all in the BP Bihar states. So if we are speaking in English, then it won't suit their background, not the cultural context of theirs, right? So we should always consider the audience, what type of audience we are having, so that it is communicated properly. Now, fifth, we have be specific. Don't exaggerate, and don't make it so bulky and redundant that the listener becomes bored and your statements gets misinterpreted or leads to confusion, right? A brief message would be very good. A small message and perfectly articulated, that is the one that we need, right? Only what is needed should be spoken. Now, six, we have avoid assumption. Do not assume that we already know what the speaker is feeling, what he wants, or what are his thoughts or opinions. Okay, instead, be open to their perspective and ask clarification questions to ensure a shared understanding. So if the speaker is only speaking, and he thinks that, okay, I know what the receiver wants or what the masses wants, so then he have a presumed notion on everything, and which is not a best way to communicate. So avoid assumption and listen to what receivers thought are. It might be correct that you know some of their thoughts, some of their opinions, but not all of it, not all of the sentiments that you are feeling you know about. Okay, so do not assume things. Open to the communication, be open to listening to them also. That is the that will be the perfect orator if he listens also. Orator doesn't mean the only a good speaker, but a good listener also. Now, seek feedback. After you are done speaking, encourage people, right? Encourage so that they uh, see that yes, we were able to understand, हमें समझ में आई चीजें, और हमें समझ में नहीं आई तो क्यों नहीं आई, और उन मिसअंडरस्टैंडिंग को भी आप एड्रेस करो, so that two-way communication is fully ensured, or message intended message was received. Okay. Now, for the eighth point, we have own your words. It's not that कि आप बोले जा रहे हो, ब्लेम किए जा रहे हो, और कुछ कुछ आपके अगर कुछ एलिगेशंस लगे हैं, या आपके बारे में लोगों को कुछ मिस इंटरप्रिटेशंस है, मिसअंडरस्टैंडिंग है, तो आप उन्हें रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं करोगे. ऑफ कोर्स आप क्रिटिसिज्म को लो, आप रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लो अपने वर्ड्स के लिए. दैट इज द perfect communication. The person who always owns his word. Okay, कि हाँ मैंने बोला है तो मैं इसकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लेता हूँ. अगर मैंने ये नहीं बोला तो मैं इसे रिकॉग्नाइज करता हूँ, और आपके क्या व्यूज है, आपके क्या ओपिनियन है, उन सब को भी मैं कंसिडर करूँ, और सीखूं कि आपकी कैसे ओपिनियन, ये ऐसे क्यों है, ये सारी चीजें मैं Sikhu. So these all are very much needed in a communicator, right? These are all the things that our politicians must learn. Don't you think so? Okay, moving on. Next, we have respect different perspectives. Okay, consider others' viewpoints and opinions also. We must consider people's viewpoints and opinions, what they think, what they have to say, and what are the things that we needed to also listen to for for everything to be clearly understood. So, because see, अभी मणिपुर में राष्ट्रपति शासन है एंड वहाँ के लोग क्या चाहते हैं कि लोग उन्हें सुने व्हाट प्रॉब्लम्स दे हैव, क्योंकि सिर्फ राष्ट्रपति शासन लगाना ही एक जरूरी चीज नहीं है, वहाँ के लोगों की बातों को सुनना भी बहुत जरूरी हो जाता है। व्हाट, कि उनकी ज़रूरत क्या है, उन्हें क्या कमी है या उन्हें क्या दिक्कत है। उम, ये सारी चीज़ें बहुत ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट हो जाती है बिकॉज़ currently that state is at its very low level, suffering so much, and all of us needs to understand what is happening in that state. Now, 10th we have adapt communication style. फ्लेक्सिबल, बी फ्लेक्सिबल। क्योंकि जब हम आप गए होगे मे बी साउथ, तो आप एक्सपेक्ट नहीं करोगे वहाँ के लोग आप से सेम लैंग्वेज में कम्युनिकेट करें। अगर आपको इंग्लिश आती है तो बहुत अच्छी, वे इंग्लिश में कम्युनिकेट कर सकते हैं। दे आर वेरी मच लर्न पर्सन एंड दे ऑब्वियसली नो, इवन इफ यू गो टू अ वेंडर ही विल बी एबल टू स्पीक इन अ good English and he will communicate with you in a very friendly friendly way, and they have a different tone, different style of saying, and they have different context and talk about different things. So a formal approach is a very different thing. A casual approach is a different thing, and you must know the ins and outs of communication. You first understand how to communicate and what type of style do we need to communicate to different person. Because if you are with someone older than you, then you will be a formal communicator, and if you are with someone younger or some person with, of your age, then you will have a friendly conversation with him. So communication style needs to change because someone is older, then we will have a formal con. Then if someone is a friend, then we can have a obviously a casual conversation. Okay. So that's that's all for today's lesson. We are done with the business communication and unit 1. So I think pretty much everything is done. If you have certain subtopics that you want to learn, then of course, please do comment and like, share, subscribe to this channel, and we will try to come up with the very good lessons that you might feel very helpful. And please give us a feedback on how we can improve and improvise. Thank you so much, guys, for listening.